To understand how we get here, we need to look at two powerful forces shaping our experience, society and the self. We all inherit a set of expectations from the world around us. Society teaches us what success looks like, how relationships should function, and even what it means to live a good life. At the same time, our inner selves, a web of thoughts, emotions, and desires, filter and interpret these societal scripts. Together, they create a complex system of pressures, promises, and disappointments. When these forces fail to align, the void of meaninglessness creeps in. Let me start by asking you this: who decided what your life should look like? If you trace your ambitions, fears, and struggles to their roots, how many of them were planted by others' parents, teachers, peers, or the media? And how many truly came from within? The answers might surprise you. Society offers us a set menu of meanings: a stable career, financial success, romantic love, a family. These are the markers of a fulfilling life, or so we're told. But here's the catch: what happens when you achieve these things and still feel empty? It's not that these pursuits are inherently bad, it's that they might not align with your authentic self. Are the goals you're chasing truly yours, or are they someone else's vision of what your life should be?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Social media has amplified one of humanity's oldest habits: comparing ourselves to others. We scroll through carefully curated highlights of other people's lives, feeling inadequate in the process. This constant comparison erodes our sense of self-worth and pushes us deeper into nihilism. After all, how can you find meaning in your life when it feels like everyone else is living a better version of it? But what if the only life worth comparing yours to is the one you truly want to live? Society thrives on predictability. It encourages us to follow established paths and punishes those who deviate. But conformity, while comfortable, often comes at the cost of authenticity. When you suppress your true desires and values to fit in, you slowly lose touch with what makes life meaningful to you. What parts of your life feel like obligations rather than choices? One of the most paralyzing aspects of nihilism is the fear it inspires. The idea that life might be meaningless is terrifying. To avoid confronting this possibility, we distract ourselves through work, entertainment, or endless social interactions. But the void doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. In fact, it grows louder in the silence. What if you stared into the void and embraced it, instead of running away? Existentialism teaches us that we are free to define our own meaning, but freedom comes with responsibility. Many of us cling to the illusion that we can control every aspect of our lives. When things go wrong, as they inevitably do, we spiral into despair, feeling like failures. But the truth is, control is an illusion. The only thing we can truly control is our response to the chaos. How much of your anxiety comes from trying to control what cannot be controlled? In the next part, we'll explore how to find light in the darkness, practical ways to rebuild a sense of meaning and authenticity in your life, no matter how deep into the void you've fallen. Get ready to unlock something truly transformative. There's something paradoxical about being human. We're wired to seek meaning, yet we exist in a universe that doesn't hand it to us. That tension between needing purpose and not being given one creates a kind of mental friction. It's where nihilism grows and where existentialism tries to plant seeds. But let's strip this of any romantic notions. It's hard, it's messy, and it's deeply personal. So how do you rebuild meaning when it feels like life doesn't offer any? Start small. People often think meaning has to come from massive breakthroughs or life-altering changes. That's a myth. Meaning is in the details, the way certain moments feel like they matter even when they're fleeting. Think about a time when something seemingly insignificant lifted you: a kind word, a shared laugh, the way light filters through a window. It's not about the scale of the experience, it's about the connection it creates. The more you notice these moments, the more they accumulate into something bigger. There's a tendency to wait for clarity or inspiration, as if life's purpose will knock on the door and introduce itself. That's another trap. Purpose isn't waiting for you, it's shaped by what you choose to care about. When you focus on things that energize you, whether it's creating something, supporting others, or even mastering a skill, you begin to carve meaning out of the chaos. It doesn't have to be profound. It just has to feel real. Here's where things get tricky. Living authentically, building a life that reflects what you value, means you'll disappoint others. People will expect you to follow the script they've written for you, and stepping off that path might cause friction. But what's worse? Disappointing them, or living a life that feels like it belongs to someone else. The discomfort of being misunderstood is temporary. The cost of denying yourself lasts much longer. And then there's the fear of failure. Creating meaning from nothing feels risky. What if you try to care about something and it doesn't work out? What if the effort doesn't feel worthwhile? That's the thing about meaning, it doesn't guarantee a reward. But the act of trying is what gives it weight. Failure isn't the enemy, apathy is. The only way to avoid emptiness is to step into the uncertainty, even if it feels uncomfortable. Society loves to sell the idea that success equals meaning. But here's the reality: achievements might bring pride, but they don't guarantee fulfillment. The question isn't what you accomplish, it's how aligned those accomplishments are with what matters to you. What happens when you stop chasing what looks impressive and start focusing on what feels right? When you let go of needing everything to make sense or fit into a perfect plan, something interesting happens. Life becomes less about answers and more about experiences. Meaning doesn't need to be tied up neatly. It's messy, incomplete, and constantly evolving, and that's what makes it alive. So much of this comes down to attention. What you give your time and energy to grows in significance. If you spend hours fixating on what's missing, that's what your life will feel like, an inventory of absences. But if you focus on small, intentional actions, you'll start to see patterns emerge. Maybe not immediately, but over time, these patterns become a thread you can follow. The void will always be there. You don't get rid of it by filling it with distractions or waiting for it to disappear. Instead, you build something around it. It's not about escaping the emptiness, it's about learning to live alongside it without letting it define you. In the final part, we'll talk about what it means to find balance, to hold the tension between nihilism and existentialism without being consumed by either. We'll also explore how to maintain this perspective when life inevitably gets hard. Living in the tension between nihilism and existentialism isn't about defeating one or the other. It's about learning to carry both without breaking. The void doesn't disappear just because you create meaning. It sits there, a quiet reminder that everything could fall apart. But that's not a threat, it's freedom. It's the space where your choices start to matter, not because the universe is watching, but because you are. Most people think balance is about finding a perfect state where everything feels right. It's not. Balance is about movement, about shifting your weight from one side to the other depending on what life throws at you. Some days you'll feel like nothing matters. Other days you'll feel a spark of purpose. Both are part of being alive. What matters is that you don't let the weight of either crush you. Start by questioning what you're holding on to too tightly. Maybe it's a belief that you're supposed to have everything figured out by now, or an idea of what success should look like, or the expectation that life should always feel meaningful. These things might feel like anchors, but sometimes they're chains. When you loosen your grip, you make room for something new. A lot of the pressure we feel comes from this idea that we have to live an extraordinary life, that anything less is failure. But meaning isn't about being extraordinary, it's about being present. It's about noticing the quiet moments, the ones that don't make headlines but leave a mark on you anyway. Like when someone really listens to you, or when you do something kind without expecting anything back. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do is simply keep going. Not because you found a reason, but because there's still more to experience. This isn't about forcing positivity, it's about curiosity. What's the next chapter going to feel like? Not what it's supposed to be, but what it actually is. When life feels heavy, it's tempting to retreat into numbness or distraction. But the problem with running away is that the weight doesn't leave, it just waits for you. Facing it doesn't mean fixing it all at once. It means doing one small thing that aligns with who you want to be, even if it's hard. Especially if it's hard. This balance isn't something you figure out once and for all. It's something you practice every day. Some days the void will win. Other days the meaning you create will shine through. Both are temporary. That's what makes them real. When things fall apart, and they will, it's easy to believe the meaning you built was an illusion. But even if it crumbles, the act of building wasn't wasted. It changed you. It taught you something about what matters to you. And that's something no collapse can erase. In the end, maybe the real art of living isn't about defeating the void or proving your meaning. Maybe it's about being able to hold both in the same hand, knowing that one gives the other its shape. Life doesn't hand us meaning, but it does give us the raw materials. What you create is up to you. And when you look back, it won't be the absence or the struggle you remember. It'll be the moments when you cared deeply, even when it was hard. Those are the moments that make everything else worth it. Not because they explain life, but because they make it undeniably yours.